Everybody, welcome back to In My Head channel. I'm your host, Brent. If it's in my head, it's going to end up in a video and we're going to talk about it. And so today, what's been in my head, and I put it in Carla's head. Carla, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Are we ready to talk some Elder?
Yes, please. Never get to talk about the Elder, so very excited.
I'm ready to talk about the Elder as well. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the Elder. We're going to kind of go down two paths, kind of not simultaneously, but we're going to come up to a crossroad. We're going to go down one way, and then we're going to come back up, and we're going to go down another, and we're going to pull that off in an hour. So before we get into talking about the Elder, first I want to tell everybody thank you for watching the videos. Thank you for all the positive feedback you've been giving me and Carla, and the comments in the videos. I do read them and try to comment on them. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment. Be sure to comment. Everybody has all their opinions about the Elder. This is going to be a very controversial episode, I feel like, because in one segment of this video, I'm going to rip the Elder to shreds. And it's not going to be the Elder that what I reimagine the Elder as is not going to be the Elder that we have. Just a little. So go ahead and be sitting down. Get your popcorn so you're ready to throw the popcorn at me. And
what do they call that? Like your chalice.
Get your chalice.
Yeah.
Get your chalice. Sit down and be the order of the rose, the order of the and be ready to throw stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, thanks to everybody. Thanks to my Patreons, the name scrolling across the screen. Thanks to everybody who's supporting me over on TeePublic, getting stickers and buttons and shirts and stuff. Thank you for that. And that's it for housekeeping. We're going to go ahead and get right into this because we got a lot to talk about. So let's get right into the Elder.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Boise, Idaho. Don't touch anything!
So Carla, I come up with two different ways that I want to talk about this. And so what I'm going to do first, because you're kind of not even in the know on the rabbit hole that I ran down ripping this thing apart.
No.
So what I want to do is I want to talk first about how, if kind of like what we've talked about, if we were going to fix the Elder as is, if we were going to fix it as is, what would we do? So we're not going to reconstruct it, but what would we do to fix it as is? First of all, let me ask you this. Bob's not in the studio. It's me and you. If you had the ability to, would you have kept this a concept album or would you have changed it?
I completely understand what they wanted to do with this album in terms of once it was decided it was going to be a concept album. I think I would have maybe, and again, this is as if there's unlimited budget, unlimited time, I kind of would have made two versions of this album. I would have made a concept album, and then I would have made like the rock album. And I kind of would have just not pitted them against each other, but I would have really had the band sit down, listen to both, and then vote on like, okay, which one do you want to release? Which one are we shelving? Or at least which one are we putting out first? That's what I would have done. Because that way you get to have your cake and eat it too. You get your concept album, but then you also get your rock album. I think I would have kept it as a concept album. I think I would have.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say that if I had the opportunity, I would kept it as a concept album too. My reimagining is like an alternate universe that I'm going to discuss later in the video. But it's going to be towards the mid or whenever we get to it. But we're going to go down this rabbit hole first. So So talking a little bit about the Elder, if any of you have been living under a hole, in a hole, not under a hole, but in a hole, under a rock, in a hole, under a rock. Um, so the Elder was released during this period where Kiss was on a real steep decline. Plus, they'd lost Peter, they'd gained Eric, and this was right after the Unmasked tour, the Unmasked album. Uh, Dynasty was a big departure, but it was still successful. And but there was a decline from the 70s. And then Unmasked was not greeted very well domestically here in the US. And Kiss only really toured to support it in Australia. The Elder was such a debacle that, and such a commercial flop, that Kiss didn't even support it at all. There was all these grandeur plans, which is why I think there should be a box set made for the Elder, because they had all these concepts and it was going to be like a play. There was going to be all this crazy stuff. They had voice actors. They had done Christopher Makepeace who was a famous actor at the time, a young actor. They had done voice. They had recorded all this audio that was basically cut from the album. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But this was supposed to be, it says music from the Elder. So this was supposed to be a soundtrack for something, maybe a movie, because if you look on the back, it says here, if you ever have read the top part of the Elder there, what it says there at the very top of the album, it says music from the Elder with Robert Christie, Anthony Parr, and Christopher Makepeace, the American Symphony Orchestra, and St. Robert's Choir. So this was supposed to be part of something bigger than it was. And none of that ever happened. And so there was supposed to be this amazing tour and this amazing concept, and none of it happened. And so after they released the super poppy Unmasked, they recorded the Elder. Now I remember when the Elder came out, I remember in between, Unmasked came out in May of 80. I was a kid in the 6th grade. And then the Elder came out in November of 81. I was in 8th grade by the time. So there was a whole grade, a whole year, fall, spring, summer, that occurred between these two albums, between Unmasked and the Elder. And I remember it feeling like an eternity. But I remember loving the Elder from the beginning because it felt like D&D. It felt like Lord of the Rings type visionary visuals and type of music. So it felt like a D&D album that told a story very loosely, that left a lot of gaping holes. Some people call it a concept album. Even Kiss calls it a concept album. We've called it a concept album for years. I don't think, hot take, I'm kind of recanting. I don't think that the Elder is a conceptual album. I think that the Elder is a soundtrack for a project that never happened. That's why there is so many holes in the story. You can't listen to this album and tell a story that makes any sense from beginning to end without using your imagination and filling holes with material that is simply not there. It's embellishment. And so it's not a concept album. It's a soundtrack to something, a play, a movie. I think it was supposed to be a movie. And it was entirely Gene's idea. So if you look really hard at it, there are gaps. Now, Carla, when it comes to the overall production of The Elder, are you in favor of it? Do you like the way it sounds, the way it's recorded, the way it's mixed?
I do. I know that a lot of people are not Bob Ezrin fans. I think a lot of people feel like he overproduces albums or songs. And I don't feel that way. I I love the production on The Elder. I think Ezrin was great. It was a great producer for this album. I think it's what the album needed. I think it's done very well, and I think if this is the sound that they were wanting to make for this album, it was done. I think Ezrin got it. I think Paul and Gene and Ezrin worked really well together to get this sound. So I think it is done very well. I think, going back to what you said, I think about this being a concept album. I think the problem is that I think Gene and Paul listened to Pink Floyd's The Wall, and they were like, oh, we can do that. And especially, now that we've got Bob Ezrin, who also co-produced that album, we can do that. And I think it's not a big jump for Pink Floyd to go from Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, Animals to The Wall. It's a big jump for KISS to go from Christine 16, Calling Dr. Love, Charisma, concept album.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big jump for them. And that was a jump that they couldn't make. So I think they just looked at The Wall and they were like, we can do that. That's what we want to do. That's where music's headed. That's where rock's headed. And it was just something they couldn't do, or at least they couldn't do at that time. So I think that's part of why The Elder just doesn't sound as put together as it should for a concept album. It is choppy because, again, that just wasn't their specialty to make an album that needed that much substance. So yeah, I think it sounds great. I mean, I love The Elder. I truly, truly love The Elder. I think production-wise, it's great. I think Bob Ezrin did a good job. I think he did a good job with what he had available, which was Gene and Paul and kind of Ace.
Mm-hmm.
Ace was really not interested in doing this album. He did the bare minimum for it. Still got a great song out of him, but yeah, I think production-wise, I think Bob Ezrin did a good job.
I won't exactly call them sister albums, and they're not produced by the same producer. Toby Wright produced Carnival of Souls, and The Elder was produced by Bob Ezrin. But The Elder is to the 80s what Carnival of Souls was to the 90s.
Yes.
They're two albums that KISS tried to do that, honestly, at the time, we look back on it now, and they've been as part of our KISS universe and part of our KISS being for years now, and we all love The Elder. But The Elder is another one of those albums that is very polarizing, just like Dynasty was and used to be, and just like Unmasked was and used to be. And The Elder and Carnival of Souls are some of those albums that are just, KISS has a lot of polarizing albums in their catalog among fans. And I'm not talking about fans and non-fans. I'm talking about among fans in the KISS world. And The Elder is one of those. I've always loved The Elder. It's one of those songs, it's one of those albums that I tried to make sense of since I was a kid. And I've had my own little theories about what exactly The Elder is, and I've even thought about it as an adult and been like sitting down going, well, they're talking about this particular song sounds like it would have been set like back in medieval times, but then Mr. Blackwell sounds like it should be set like some corporate, and even KISS has said, it said in an interview that it was about some corporate Moogle, some big guy that's just all about money, 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 and greed, greed, greed. Mr. Blackwell could be Mr. Simmons.
Yeah.
Could have wrote it about himself, but it doesn't make full sense. You have to kind of make it make sense. There's just a lot of things that stick out that if you ever listen to Fanfare really well, like put it on and turn it up, there's train whistles at the beginning of it. It's like, okay, well, now you just took me out of Middle Earth back in the medieval times, and now you put me at least in some type of steampunk type of era, because you got a train whistle. It could be a steam train or whatever. And it just, there's so many things about the songs that makes you jump all over the place. There's titles to songs and lyrics and songs that you really have to, it's almost like sitting down and listening to the soundtrack to Footloose without ever seeing the movie and trying to conceptualize the movie Footloose out of the songs. So to me, it's like, okay, that's what this is. So, and we have just over time conceptualized it. Now, one thing that I would have done is, we got some dialogue at the end. We've got dialogue just in all kinds of different places, or in on the album. But there was actually some dialogue that was recorded that, from my understanding, was cut. So I think that it would have been really cool if I was producing this. I would have kept all that dialogue in between the songs. I would have not let Polygram rearrange it where they moved tracks around. Because that even screwed up the storyline even more, because you have on mine, although it says on the back, Fanfare, Just a Boy, Odyssey, Only You, Under the Rose, Dark Light, World Without Heroes, The Oath, Mr. Blackwell. There's no Escape from the Island on here. It's not mentioned, and it goes straight to I. So that is pretty much in order. Like I said, except I don't have Escape from the Island. But when you look at the album, when you pull the album out, the very first track is The Oath. So the track, it's The Oath, then Fanfare, then Just a Boy, Dark Light, Only You, Under the Rose, A World Without Heroes, Mr. Blackwell, Escape from the Island, Odyssey, and I. And is A World Without Heroes mentioned?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is mentioned. Yeah, it was mentioned. So I don't know why I was thinking for a second that wasn't mentioned. So it just doesn't make sense. So I would not have, if I were going to keep it as The Elder, I would not have changed much of the songs, because just let's run down real quick through the songs. Let's talk about real quickly what we think about them, at least so we can, get an opinion on it. And then I want to move on to destroying this album and making it something else.
Okay.
So the way the original track listing, the little stuff, the Fanfare starts off with, sounds like a train whistle, and then some chimes, and then the wind's blowing, and then you have the little piccolo flute come in, and then the rest of the album come in, the rest of the orchestra come in. And it's almost setting that's what I'm saying, instead of this being a film, to me it was almost like it was setting it up to be a play, because it's playing a fanfare, and fanfares you usually see in plays or operas. And it usually introduces a melody or a musical phrase that is going to be repeated somewhere throughout, if not throughout, the songs. And it actually is. It's actually repeated in Only You. It's repeated several times on the album, but fanfare then goes away, and you got some Gregorian chant guys, with the big hoods like Kiss was wearing in Kiss Army, in Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. And it kind of reminds me, and then it goes into Just a Boy. So what do you think fanfare was, if you're going to start the album and you're going to start it conceptualizing it, and it's going to be kind of like in real time, flowing the way the story would have flowed. It's a kind of weird way to start an album, but
yeah,
but it's kind of a throwback in a way to Destroyer, where Detroit Rock City didn't start straight off either. It had this long, like a bookend. Yeah, because you have the bookend, you have the thing at the beginning of Destroyer, the thing at the end of Destroyer, and you have the same thing here.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call Destroyer a concept album, but there's definitely elements of that in there.
Oh,
For sure.
people have definitely tried to twist the arm of Destroyer and make it
I
a
mean,
concept
Bob
album.
Ezrin loves to produce a concept album, even if that's not his idea. It somehow kind of becomes one. And yeah, I think Destroyer, you're right. It definitely has those bookends. And I just think Fanfare, again, like, I get it because it's a concept album. I get that you're setting the scene, and you immediately, when I hear that, I know this is the kind of album it's going to be. I'm not going to go Fanfare and then I'm not going to hear something like Love Gun. Like, it's okay. This is kind of between the album cover and the gatefold and Fanfare. Okay, I kind of get what this is about. So it does a good job in that sense of kind of setting the scene. But I just feel like it could have been done a little bit better to make it a little bit. There could have been a little bit more rock in there. Again, just it's just not Kiss at all. There is no Kiss in Fanfare. So yeah, I feel like it does a good job of setting the scene. I just feel like if I were listening to this album for the first time and this was the latest Kiss album, I would have been so confused. So confused.
Yep. And then so Fanfare ends. You got the little chant going on, and then it goes into Just a Boy, that bass guitar sliding up and the little chimes. And then Paul comes in with acoustic guitar. So here's our first actual track of the album. And Paul's singing falsetto within one line and running an acoustic guitar. And even when it kicks in, it doesn't ever it's not a very long song. It doesn't get very hard as far as music wise goes. I saw that. You smirking over there. You are dirty. Goodness. You're like a high school, you're like a junior high kid over there.
I
am. But well, he's just a boy. I mean, yeah, what do you expect? But I love Just a Boy. I think I've always loved Just a Boy. I actually like every song off of The Elder. I love the album a lot. I would not want to have The Elder. I'm at that point in my life now where I wouldn't not want to have it. We did a thing one time, I can't remember, but we did a thing. If you could erase any Kiss album from the catalog, which one would it be? And I don't think I picked The Elder. But Just a Boy, I love it. What's he says? While some would search for to one to guide us, some are staring at me. I like Paul, some of his lyrics he does. I'm no hero, but I wish I could be. So I think it's a good song.
Yeah, I do too. And I think it's an important song for Paul because, Paul went on to do Phantom of the Opera in Toronto years later. And I think this was an important song for him because he is singing in falsetto. It's high, something we don't hear. I mean, you definitely hear that from Paul throughout Kiss, but I mean, a whole song or most of a song, you don't. So I think this was a really important song for him in terms of testing his vocal abilities and seeing like what his range was and what he could do. And you see that later when he did Phantom of the Opera. I think, again, I don't know if this was like their Comfortably Numb. Because in that song, David Gilmour mentions when I was a child, right? Mm-hmm. It's an adult talking about his past. Or at least in that part of the song. Whereas here you have a fully grown man talking about being a boy. Not I was a boy, I'm just a boy. So I think that might throw some people off. Like, wait a minute, you're a full grown man. Are you playing a boy? Like, are you going to be a boy, but you're a man? So I think that might have thrown some people off. Again, because they didn't know about this movie. Is this movie coming out? Are they playing themselves? What's going on? But knowing what we know now about it and just having the song, I do like it. I do like the song a lot.
Yeah, and another thing, a cool thing about this song, you mentioned about it sounding like kind of like They're Comfortably Numb. Paul plays the guitar solo on this later on towards the end of the song, and it has a total Floyd feel to it. Mm-hmm. Totally has a Floyd feel to it. So yeah, so I get it. I get it when it comes to that. And then they actually have a song that's a cover. It's not technically a cover. The guy did it after Kiss did. But the guy that wrote it, I can't remember his name. What was his name? Hold on, I've got this pulled up here real quick. Tony Powers. He wrote the Odyssey, and the weird thing about Odyssey is Paul is once again displaying his vocal abilities.
Mhm.
So he comes in on this and he's down in that low register for Paul. Almost, and he kind of does that. He messes around with his voice a lot. He kind of started the falsetto stuff like all the way back on Dynasty.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he had been working Dynasty, and he did it some on Unmasked. So he had started experimenting with that upper register and the lower register as well. Odyssey is one of those songs where it's like, okay, if you're going to conceptualize this album, and so far all we know by listening to songs is that he's just a boy too young to be sailing. He's going on, people are looking at him to guide and to save. And then the very next track, where he says, "I'm so frightened of failing." And then we go into the next song, and the very first words he says is, "From a far off galaxy, I hear you calling me." And it's like, okay, so he could be talking to the spiritual elders, but the Odyssey to me almost sounds like a love song. So it's like, okay, if it's a love, we met along the way, and it just some of the lyrics lean towards love song. Okay, it's like, okay, does he already have a love interest? Is this a love interest that he meets at the very beginning? And so there I am again trying to fill in holes to make this work. And so what do you think about Odyssey?
I love Odyssey. Don't change it. Don't touch it. It is perfect the way it is. I don't care if we make this album pure rock, pure concept. I do not care. Do not touch Odyssey. It's perfect the way it is.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love that when the orchestra comes in, it's the real strong French horns, and I love the sound of a French horn.
It is so Bob Ezrin on this song. I mean, he is so saturated on this song, and I do not care. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. All right, and so then we go into on the original track listing, we go into Only You, and this is where the next few songs, Only You and Under the Rose, these two songs, I get it. It's like, okay, because it's a Gene song. Only you have the answers. Only you can do this. Only you can do that. And then Paul comes in and basically says some of the lines from inside of the liner notes, because the liner notes kind of try to set up the story. When the earth was young, they were already old, and the elder were ideal. They were blah, 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 blah. So it's like, okay, where do you get the story from the elder? Well, you get it from right here. This is where you get the story from. But there's a part in Only You where Paul comes in, and it's during the little refrain, and Paul comes in and says, in every age, in every time, a hero is born as if by grand design. And then they go into that refrain of the Just a Boy. Da-na-na-na, ba-na-na-na. And then they got that riff that sounds like old Kiss, that da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na. Almost sounds like it belongs on Creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, or on an old Kiss album, or like from early 70s, like it could have been off of one of the first two albums. I think it would sounded really good on. So, what about you with Only You?
I like Only You. It's a song that I kind of like. Not that I forget it, but there's just more songs on this album that just come to mind first than this song. I do like it. I think it's it fits on the album, but again, it's not one of my favorite songs on the album. It's good.
Okay.
about it.
And then it ends, and then it literally goes into Only You. It basically bleeds. I love when a song starts and then ends and then bleeds into another.
Yeah.
And then you got Under the Rose. Under the Rose to me is probably other than The Oath, it's probably my favorite song. It is just a huge, grandiose song. It feels like it's, 100 miles wide and 100 miles deep. It's just so big. And some of that amazing Ezrin production with the choir and just so big. It's one of those, it's got quiet parts, and then it gets big and then get quiet parts again. It's got an awesome solo. Let's see. Who does the solo on Under the Rose? Because it's a good enough solo. It says here Ace Frehley does vocals, lead guitar, bass on Under the Rose, Dark Light, and The Oath. So Ace actually plays bass on 3 of the songs on this album. And since it doesn't say nobody else played the guitar solo, it looks like Ace does the solo on Under the Rose. It's one of my favorite solos. The one thing I could change if I could, since their vocals are so much the same, and this is Eric's song that he wrote the music to and a lot of the words, is I would have let the new member of the band, Eric Carr, sing this one. Because Eric's and Gene's voices are so much the same. And this isn't the big Gene that we're used to. This is that, though you may be pure of heart, that softer Gene. And I think that's where it's the contrast of the loneliness will haunt you. And I love the words to Under the Rose. And I see this too. Only You, he's been commissioned by the Order of the Rose, that he's the chosen one. And now he has to go under the rose. He has to do it by himself. Loneliness will haunt you. Will you sacrifice? Will you take the oath? Will you live your life under the rose? So, I mean, they actually say the oath, and there's a song, The Oath, coming. So, yeah, I like when they wordplay word within songs, say the name of a song or words from a song that's somewhere else on the album. It kind of helps to kind of just link it all together.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I took the words right out of my mouth. I don't have anything else to say about this song because you pretty much said it for me. So,
oh dang it! All right, I'll let you go. Let you go first. All right. So the next track, Dark Light. You go first.
I love Dark Light. I love Ace on this song. I love the songwriters on this song. It's really fun to look at the liner notes and see who's all on this or who contributed to this album, because people you would never suspect, right? I mean, Lou Reed I love Lou Reed. And so to like have him and Kiss together is really cool. And then to think like Lou Reed was a part of the Elder, like how, why? But no, I love Dark Light. It's a good Ace song. It's an Ace song that I could hear that on a solo album of his. It would have worked. It's just, it's kind of shows you too, like, how he didn't really want to go with this album. He didn't want to go in this direction, but he's like, all right, I'll give you something. And he did, and he delivered, and we got to hear Ace. So no complaints there.
Yep. Dark Light. I love it. I love that, that Ace, they even Lou Reed helped rewrite the words to take it from Don't Run to Dark Light, and kind of just help it move along that conceptualization of the album. Dark Light, the dark is never ending. And I like how Ace does the spoken word in it, where he'll say, look out, because there's something wrong and you don't know what it is. I love when Ace does, when he doesn't do that very often. I love the solo in Dark Light. Ace does a really good solo. It's got the bongos in it, and I think it's great. So next, that takes us to A World Without Heroes from Gene.
Yeah, this is a good one. I again, like Dark Light, I could hear this on different albums. I could hear this on Dynasty, I guess. I don't know. I could definitely hear this on like a different Kiss album. So it's refreshing to hear that. It's still there. It's still buried there somewhere with them, and then they still got it. And And I think Lou Reed also, I think he wrote not wrote the song "A World Without Heroes" is like a world without heroes is like the world without a sun.
Yeah.
Is that how it starts? I think Lou Reed wrote that line.
He did.
Yeah, it's a good song. It's a good pace. It's just Gene's voice is great in it. Yeah, so I mean,
Lou Reed is actually all over this album.
He is, which is so crazy. Like you wouldn't think that he would be, but he is. And
yeah, he co-wrote. He has a writing credit on Dark Light, on A World Without Heroes, on Mr. Blackwell. Yeah, he's all over it.
Yeah,
and he's on kind of the darker songs. It's kind of very, very unique.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If he was listed on Fanfare.
Yeah. I love World Without Heroes. It's kind of like you shouldn't be surprised from Gene singing A World Without Heroes if you listen to his 78 solo album.
Yes.
Because it could have been stuck on his solo album.
100%.
Yeah. So if you heard his solo album, then A World Without Heroes shouldn't surprise you.
Yeah.
And then the fan favorite off this album, we have The Oath. The Oath, I think it's perfect. I wouldn't change anything about it. Even I wouldn't change the falsetto of it, because that just gives it the character of the song. Yeah. So, but yeah, once again, it kind of carries along the word. You look at the words of the song, it kind of it's one of the songs. There's some songs on here that make sense that this is the telling the story of what this is supposed to be, and then you have some that they just don't really, in their form, don't make sense, and you have to really kind of bend and stretch to make it make sense. And what do you think about The Oath?
Yeah, no, same. I mean, I think it's great. I love it the way it is. I wouldn't change it. Even if they decided to make this a rock album and get rid of Fanfare and get rid of everything, this would have fit. It's great. Keep it.
Yep. It would stand outside the story. Mm-hmm. And my reimagining later, we'll talk. I'll talk about that. And then next, a song that actually used to scare me a little bit when I was a kid, because I was like 12 when this came out. Mr. Blackwell. What do you think about it?
It's a good one. It's a good Gene song. I mean, I'm really not going to talk negatively about any of these songs on this album because they're great. I think out of all the songs on the album, it is, to me at least, it's the one where I'm like, how does this fit in with The Elder? How does this fit in? But I mean, that aside, it's just a good song. It's only Gene could do it. I feel like I don't think Paul could have sang it. I think it's a pure Gene song. So. Yeah.
And one, I love how the song is very stripped down, and you just get all these little weird bass hits from Gene that kind of reminds you when he was like spitting blood, these little you hear that through the whole thing. And Gene is like, he's double tracked. He's got a low where he's like singing real low, and then he's also, again, on top of that, singing high. And this is one of the songs where I'm like you, it's almost like it's a conversation between two people. It's like schizophrenic in a way, because he's saying, I never said I was more than I am. You're what I want. I don't give a damn. Okay. Who is who he wants? Does he want the boy? Does he want to, like, him saying that? Does he want to get rid of the boy?
Yeah.
And then it's like, you hear, you cheat and lie. You wonder why you can't sleep at night. Okay. Well, he's not talking about the boy. That sounds like somebody talking about him. And, or is this the boy talking to Mr. Blackwell saying, you're what I want. You cheat. You're what I want. And you're who I'm up against. You cheat and lie. So like I said, you end up just running these songs around in your head, trying to make sense of them, and kind of like taking that square peg and kind of shaving some of the corners off to make it go in a round hole. But yeah, so Mr. Blackwell, I think it's cool. I think it's, a spooky song kind of in a way. And then we have the instrumental, Escape from the Island.
Yeah, I think this is such a cool song, and I think if they were going to make this like a true concept album, if they were going to have this become a film or whatever, I think you'd have to have an instrumental on it at some point, as like a nice bridge between scenes or a montage or whatever. So I really like Escape from the Island. I think it's really cool, and it makes sense to have an instrumental on the album.
Yeah. And I like Escape from the Island. The thing that I don't understand to this day, even, and I've not understood it since I was a 12-year-old kid, and I don't understand it to this day. Why is it this is an instrumental song? They could have named it anything. They could have named it whatever, but they named it Escape from the Island. What island is he escaping from? Because he was on a ship at the beginning. Now he's on an island. So was he going to the island on a ship? So where Mr. Blackwell was Mr. Blackwell on an island leading an army of like, demonic pygmies or whatever and was going to take over the world from an island? Or was he going to, I've heard some people say, oh no, he was going to Long Island. That's where Mr. Blackwell lives, at the epicenter of corporate greed. Long Island. Okay, no, wait a minute now. Now we're not back in medieval times. We're in modern times now. So you know what I'm saying? It's like it does sound like an escape. It's because you hear sirens at the beginning. It's like, where's the sirens coming from? Is he breaking out of jail? Is he just robbed? Did he just kill Mr. Blackwell and now the alarms are going off and he's got to get out and the bombs are exploding? You hear bombs all through the thing. And then it just ends with him. And, I see it at the end where it's doing that whole build up at the end and the drums are rolling. He's jumping and at the very end he lands on the boat. So it's one of those things. It's another one of those songs that even though it's a musical song and montage, but I love the song. And then I is kind of like the triumphant song at the very end. I believe in me. I was able to do this. I was so frightened, I almost ran away. I didn't believe I could do everything I needed to. And then the bolt of lightning hit me on my head, which I believe that's where he's saying, oh, I realized that I began to see, just needed to believe in me.
And this is the end of the album, right?
Yeah, it's the end of the album.
Yeah, and I think it's a great song. But here's another thing with the concept. There aren't a lot of songs on this album to be a concept album. You look at The Wall, it's a double album. You look at Tommy, a lot of songs on Tommy, The Who's Tommy. And so you've got this one, it's like, you guys were going to do a whole movie off of, are there 10, 12 songs? Yep.
Well, you know what I've heard, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due. I actually heard this over on Xander and Daphne's channel, Kiss Army Things. They did an extensive. If you've not seen it, go over to Kiss Army. After you watch this video, go over to Kiss Army Things and watch. They did like 3 or 4. They just kept going back to it. And one of the things that they said was they found out from somebody, I can't remember who, that like this was part 1 of what could have been part 2.
Right.
Like it should have been like a 2-parter. So like this was the beginning. So like I would have been the middle of the movie. But but I sounds like to me, it sounds like the end of the movie.
Right.
So that's the problem I have with that is, okay, if I's supposed to be the middle of the movie, then why does it sound like he's triumphant and he's done with his journey, not halfway through it? It does. Once again, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I think too with The Elder, there's a lot of conflicting things about this album. There's a lot of conflicting interviews because I think Gene and Paul had ideas for it, and then when those didn't pan out, they may have changed their story a little bit, and now they don't really talk about it at all. So I think it's I don't know if we're ever going to get like direct answers. I know even Bob Ezrin has kind of changed his opinion a little bit on the album. He's changed his answers. I've listened to a lot of interviews with him, and sometimes he'll say certain things about this album, then other times he'll say other things. And so it's just, I don't know. I don't know if they're just trying to like hide things because they're embarrassed, or I don't know what's going on with it. But yeah, I just think, it sounds like the end. It sounds like the conclusion.
Yeah, like
the
credits
story.
should start coming, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And then at the very end of the album, and here's the part that really throws you off. It gets done with I. The movie or the play's done,
Mhm.
supposedly. And then at the very end of the album, you hear music and somebody walking, sound like they're walking through a door, opening a door, going into the council chambers. And Morpheus is like, "Do you think the boy? Oh, yes, he's got the light in his eyes and the look of a true champion." It's like, well, now wait a minute. Shouldn't this been all the way back up, like towards the beginning of the album before all this, like maybe somewhere around Just a Boy or Odyssey, or definitely before Only You, because they would have, Only You is like when he's in front of maybe Morpheus or in front of somebody saying, "You're the chosen one. You're the people. You're the person that's going to have had been chosen to do this. This is your time." But he would have been chosen by the council or by the Order of the Rose before that. So something they stick at the very end of the album, in theory, in practicality, should have been almost all the way at the beginning of it. So which just further confuses and makes it like what? What were they
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
But all in all, I love The Elder. But I'm going to get your popcorn out because I'm going to reimagine. I'm going to reimagine this album for you. We've got a few minutes left in the video, so this is what I'm going to do. All right, so got my notes here, and Carla, I want you to just, as I'm going along, I'm going to stop and I'm going to ask you what you think so far.
Okay.
All right, so I've got that this was not the hard rock album that Kiss had promised coming off the commercial flop, except for Australia, of Unmasked. This was largely due to the involvement of Bob Ezrin, who came in and trashed almost every track Kiss had been working on. Songs like Deadly Weapon that Simmons recycled for a different song on Asylum album. And Deadly Weapon was sang by Paul on the demo. It was sang by Gene on Asylum. Nowhere to Run was re-recorded for Killers. Feel Like Heaven was covered by Peter on Let Me Rock You. Heaven became Breakout on Frehley's Comet's first album, and Car Jam 1981 on Revenge. It's My Life was given to Wendy O. Williams and later appeared on the box set, and a few instrumentals, one titled Silly Girl, and two of the other known by their bootleg names, The Difference Between Men and Boys and The Council of the Elder. So if I had to reimagine The Elder, I would have done something like this. I would have cut some of the Elder songs that I felt like, one, it wouldn't have been a conceptual album. I wouldn't have made it a conceptual album. I'd have cut enough of the songs that there would have been no story to follow. And I'd have cut some Elder songs, add some songs that was demoed for the Elder, and or songs that appeared on Killers. Songs like Nowhere to Run, I'm a Legend Tonight, Down on Your Knees, Partners in Crime, It's My Life, Feels Like Heaven. So, and so here's how I wrote it out. So 1981 was a pivotal year for Kiss. A band known for their high energy rock anthems suddenly found themselves experimenting with something unexpected. Concept album. Music from the Elder was ambitious, theatrical, and divisive. But what if it was never meant to be a concept album? What if Kiss would have made that hard rock album that they said they were going to make? So I'm going to reimagine Kiss's 1981 release as a straight up rock record. As a straight up rock record, incorporating key demo tracks and cuts from Killers. So, and then I asked some questions. Well, why was The Elder a concept album? After the commercial struggles of Unmasked, Kiss attempted to do something drastic, partnered with producer Bob Ezrin to create a story-driven album meant to showcase their musical maturity. While some tracks rocked, the album's narrative structure made it feel distant from a classic Kiss sound and definitely not a rock album. So what tracks should stay? Despite the mixed reception, some songs on The Elder have contained powerful riffs and classic Kiss energy. Tracks like The Oath, I, Dark Light, those might stay on the reimagined version, stripping away their connection from the album's storyline and letting them stand alone as rock anthems. So What about the lost tracks and the killer editions? What if we had more of a signature KISS firepower? Demo tracks like Deadly Weapons, Nowhere to Run, Killers fit right into this reimagined lineup. Then add songs like Partners in Crime, Down on Your Knees, and suddenly the album becomes something totally different, more aggressive, more KISS. So the final track list, this is the track list that I would have done. So track 1, starting off, I would start the album with I'm a Legend Tonight. A powerful opener, setting the tone with confidence for the album. Track number 2, I would put The Oath. Keeps the energy high with the dramatic riff heavy intensity. Track number 3, Dark Light. Slightly shifts the mood with Ace's unique swagger. Track number 4, Deadly Weapons. Paul's song introduces an aggressive, classic KISS rock vibe. Track number 5, ending the first side. We're going to, mid-album, have a little breather and put in A World Without Heroes. It's emotional, but remains resonant. Track number 6, Down on Your Knees, opening the second side, picks things back up with a fun driving rhythm song. Track number 7, Partners in Crime, keeps the energy going with a slick, hook-driven feel. Track number 8, the fan favorite, Nowhere to Run, adds an emotional weight before the final stretch. Track number 9, another fan favorite coming in late, It's My Life, the rebellious anthem, pushing towards a climactic close. Track number 10, end the album the same way they did with The Elder, ending the album with the dramatic, uplifting finish. I would change the title of the album to Deadly Weapons. So if music from The Elder had leaned in this direction, would it have been better received? Who knows? But one thing's for sure, KISS never stops evolving. And we as KISS fans never stop imagining. So that is
spending money.
or spending money. So I think what I'm going to do is I meant to mention this in our last video that we did. It will already be out on the channel by the time The Elder hits. Is I want to do our greatest hits playlist. I'm going to do one on Spotify, and I'm going to do a reimagined Elder playlist. I'm going to call it Deadly Weapons. I almost named it Partners in Crime. But I thought Deadly Weapons would be cool. It would have been cool. It would, during that time, early 80s, you had bands like Priest start to come out and Iron Maiden start to come out. So I thought something with the word dead in it, like Deadly Weapons or something would have been cool.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to change the title of the album because it makes no sense.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been called The Elder. It would have been, if I'd have made this album, it would have been Deadly Weapons. So what do you think about that? What do you think about what I did?
I love that. I think that's such a good idea. I don't know if Bob Ezrin would have been able to produce this album then if it were just a pure rock album. I don't know if he could have done it. Like, I don't know if he would have been able to restrain himself. Because he loves concept albums. And I don't know if he would have been able to do it. But either way, I think, your reimagining is great for just making it a rock album and really kind of distancing itself from this medieval Lord of the Rings, whatever it is.
Right.
I think your reimagining does a really good job of that.
I think that, Killers came out in between Creatures and The Elder. And Michael James Jackson had produced the 4 tracks that were on Creatures. The Partners in Crime, Down on Your Knees, I'm a Legend Tonight, and there's another one. What was the other track that was on Killers? It's leaving my brain. Somebody will put it in the comments. They're screaming it at their screen right now. But he produced those 4 tracks on Killers. And I think that that if they could have gotten in touch and gotten a hold of Michael a little earlier, and he would have produced this album. What I also tried to make sure that I didn't do was I tried to make sure I didn't use any tracks that were on Creatures because I didn't want to take away from Creatures to make the Elder better.
Yeah, that's a good
So
point.
I stole from Killers because that was close enough. It was close enough to the Elder to be able to use those songs, and plus some demos that, like I said, I did steal "Love's a Deadly Weapon" from Asylum because
Yeah,
that,
that's fine.
but it's Paul, and the cool thing about it being on here is that it's Paul, it's not Gene. It's a Gene song that Paul sang.
Yeah.
So, but I think that if they would have skipped Ezrin, and used Michael James Jackson, it probably would have been a little closer to what Creatures was.
I think so.
Or even if it was the vibe, even if all of these songs had the vibe of the songs that they have on Killers, I think it would have been a better album.
Yeah. I mean, I love Bob Ezrin. I know a lot of people don't like him. They think he overproduces a rock album. They think it, I say what you want. I mean, I personally really like his work. If you want a really great example of non-KISS Bob Ezrin work, in my opinion, you don't have to check out the whole album, Da Da from Alice Cooper, even though it's my favorite Alice Cooper album, but the title track, whew,
yeah,
that's a good one. That's a good Bob Ezrin rock song, in my opinion. But yeah, I think overall Elder it's just a good album, and like looking back on it now, we can really appreciate it. It's grown for a lot of people, a lot of fans, and I think Gene and Paul really shouldn't shy away from it as much as they do. I mean,
no.
I don't know if they'll ever realize how much people actually really like this album. Maybe they just think everyone hates it and we're not going to talk about it and we're going to pretend it doesn't really exist, but that's not the case. People do like it. People want more from it. They did like was it a colored vinyl for its 40th anniversary? Is that right?
Yeah, and they did a picture disc of the hand too.
That's
that basically looks like the center ring on the vinyl.
Which, I love that picture of Paul, like with his face kind of covered and him with the hand. I love that picture. But yeah, I think Gene and Paul should embrace it a little bit more than they do. They never will, but I wish they would. And I think they probably should have listened to Ace a little bit more. I think this might have been like the straw that broke the camel's back with Ace, where he was just like, all right, I'm done now. Like, this is not the direction I want to go in. I am obviously not being heard. They do not care about my opinion. I'm out. And I think if they would have listened to Ace a little bit more, not that everyone has to like bow down to Ace, but I just feel like Ace was right. It should have been a hard rock album. They should have stuck with that. But then we wouldn't have had the Elder, and I love the Elder. So what do I know?
Yeah, it's kind of like, the bizarro alternate universe or whatever. Because, I mean, they did go back on their word. I remember being a young KISS fan, and I remember them promising that after the Unmasked, our next album is going to be hard, it's going to be heavy, it's going to be this, that, and the other. And we didn't get that until Creatures.
Right.
And Creatures was actually considered, even though us KISS fans love it, it was actually considered a commercial flop, and the tour did really bad. At that point in time, they had damaged the brand of KISS so bad that I've actually said this before, that it was useless for them to be in the makeup at that point in time. They should have if they'd took the makeup off with Creatures the way they did with Lick It Up. Creatures would have been a huge album.
And speaking of that too, I just want to briefly touch on this, that the look of KISS for Elder, right, changed. You had Gene with his hair slicked back. You had Paul with like the purple bandana. You had kind of the debut of Eric. I mean, a little bit. I mean, you did kind of see it before Elder, but you had that, and then you had Ace, who cut his hair and had like a different outfit on. And I don't like Paul's look at this era. I don't like the purple headband. I don't like Gene's slick back hair. Eric that's great. I actually do like Ace's look here. I do like the shorter hair. I do like the kind of lightning arrow squiggly thing. I do like Ace's look, but it was just a lot of changes with Kiss, and I just think it wasn't perceived well at first, but now people love the Elder. So
at that point in time, it was almost like, what are y'all doing? You know,
I think they lost themselves. They didn't know.
What
they didn't know.
What are you doing? And I don't think they really did know. And
I think with the band the band as a whole, they were lost. They didn't know what to do. I think the business of Kiss didn't know what to do. And then just individually, they all were kind of going through things at the time and they didn't know what to do. And then you just throw them all together to make a concept album that they'd never made before. It was not going to work in their favor. At the time, it wasn't going to work in their favor.
Yep. And I agree with you on, I think that at this point in time, and one of the funny things is the one thing that I can hope when it comes to Pop House is Gene and Paul are not really, we're never going to get them to accept the Elder.
No.
We're never going to get them to accept or be proud of Phantom. And those are things that fans love. Those are fan favorites. And I just think that I know that Pop House doesn't have I think that the rights to Phantom is probably still owned by Hanna-Barbera or still owned by somebody. It's probably not owned by Pop House, probably not owned by Universal. But I know that Pop House owns the brand KISS now. And, they work very closely with Universal and some other merchandising. The merchandise is handled by a different company. I can't remember the name. But so Pop House is kind of like the global umbrella at the top, and they've got these different subsidiaries, Universal and the merchandising stuff. And even like with this KISS Army Storms Vegas, there's a company that's doing that too. And so it's like Pop House is orchestrating all of it, but having other people carry things out. So hopefully Pop House will give the Elder some love in the future. And I honestly think there's enough stuff with the Elder for there to be some type of box set. I do, or some type of deluxe thing. I think there's enough there.
Yeah.
I still would love to see I would love to see, and this is off topic, but we'll get out of here soon. But I think I'd love to see where somebody takes the original print, the original film, and they upscale all the footage from Kiss Meets the Phantom, and they make like a deluxe version that is the best of the combinations of the theatrical release and the Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park and Kiss and the Attack of the Phantoms, and put them together, and even put in concert footage, because there was more concert footage in concert footage rather than just some clips, and like just make it this huge, just gigantic bonus thing. And I know that people used to say, well, and truthfully say, well, Paul don't believe in physical media. Fine, if you don't want a physical media, make us purchase it.
He believes in physical cash.
Make us buy it digitally. So if you don't want to put it on Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray for us, then make it to where it can be downloaded and purchased. So, but I would love to have something that I would always thought about. It'd be so cool to have all the footage upscaled to 4K from the original film, and make just like this huge deluxe version of the movie.
Yeah.
With commentary, if you can get people to do commentary, get some commentary on there, get some interviews, stuff like that. I'd pay $100 for that. I mean, so anyway, they probably want $500 for it though.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, that's all we got for this one. So just let us know what you think about the Elder. How would you change it if you changed it at all? And don't say you'd never. Well, you can say you'd never have it put out, because I kind of did in a way, kind of. But that was the kind of bittersweet part to me doing my reimaging. Is basically if we'd have reimaged it the way that I was going to do, we would not have the Elder at all. And I do love the Elder, but I've always thought, well, what if Kiss would have made the hard rock album that they said they were going to make?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it's almost like that same thing. What if Kiss hadn't have made the solo albums? What if they would have put out an album in place of those that say had those songs, not all of them, but had the sound like the Capitol Theater recordings off of side 4 of Alive 2.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be.
And I know too, at the time with the release of Elder, they might have been like, this is it. This ruined us. We're done. And obviously we know that's not the case. Obviously we know that they had continued successes as a band, and that this was just kind of a muddy point, and that they had a whole nother life ahead of them of Kiss. So looking back on it, we can look at this and say, oh, it's just a little bump in the road. Whereas probably at the time they were like, oh yeah, this bump just totaled our car, and it's not going to drive another inch. It's not going to drive another mile. So very interesting album to look back on it now, knowing what we know about Kiss's future from that point forward.
Yep. I remember after the Elder, and when they didn't tour for it, and they didn't do very much publicity for it. You can see the little bit that they did do. You can find those videos on YouTube and stuff. We didn't know if we were going to get another album out of Kiss. So we knew that they had newly signed with Polygram, but bands have had contracts before and had an album that flopped, and the record label's been like, okay, we're just going to go ahead and drop you. And even Kiss was probably at risk for that after the Elder. They were just making real bad decisions at that time. Luckily, they did right the ship with Creatures. It just wasn't as big as it could have been, but at least they did start righting the ship in that way. They were selling it. They were selling it through the stormy seas.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's all.
They escaped from the island.
Yeah, they escaped from the island. That's right. That's all for this one. We will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Be sure to interact down in the comments. And that's all we got. Be sure to get your entries in for the Gene Doll before that closes. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye. I love the Elder album cover. I love it so much.
Yeah, I do too. A lot of people, I wish that they would have put Kiss somewhere on it, but I don't know. I think they were just trying to bury in a way that it was a Kiss album. I don't know.